Resumes and cover letters. I get so many questions about resumes and cover letters. Let's dig in. First of all, you have to really think about, what does an employer want? You'll start to notice a trend here with some of these lectures. Let's look at the hiring equation from an employer's perspective. To begin with, recognize that companies take risks with every hiring decision. The risk that the person hired may not meet the expectations, and the risk that they could let a better candidate slip through their fingers. Many companies judge the success of their recruiting efforts by quality of hire, or a measure of how closely a new employee meets the company's needs. Of course, your perceived ability to perform the job is an essential part of your potential quality as a new hire. However, hiring managers consider more than just your ability to handle the job. They want to know if you'll be reliable and motivated. That is, if you're somebody who, quote unquote, gets it when it comes to being a professional in today's workplace. And to be quite honest with you, very often I'll hear from managers and hiring managers that the people that they're getting, the new just graduated students, don't get it. So they may be able to perform the job, but they're not reliable or motivated. They want all three. And if you have all three, you will truly stand out in today's job market. So how can we get started? Again, the goal of any good resume is to show that you are a qualified candidate and a good match for the job that should be interviewed. The goal is to get the interview. So a resume is a summary of your experience and skills relevant to the field of work you're entering. It's an accomplishment-driven marketing tool that speaks for you. It can serve as an introduction for future opportunities. Remember, most employers spend seconds scanning a resume. For this reason, especially at this stage in your career, keep your resume to only one page. We can try to help figure out how to do this, again, with help from the Internship and Career Center, roommates and friends, your TA, but try to figure out a way to keep your resume to one page. Now, to get started, first ask yourself, how can I target my resume to the position I'm applying for? Next, prepare an inventory of your own skills, accomplishments. You know where you are in terms of education. What are your goals and experiences as they relate to this specific position? How can you do this? You have to know the position. Again, research the position, research the company, know about the industry in which that company operates. Do the research so that you're able to tailor your resume to the position you're applying for. What you should know for the position: necessary skills, desired qualifications, required education, and work experience. But what do you do if you don't have a specific position? In other words, they haven't put anything out that gives you all of that information. Well, that requires that you do a little more digging to try to figure out, what do the positions that they have look like in terms of necessary skills, desired qualifications, etc. So there might not be a specific opening, but you should still work to tailor your particular resume to the field, again, company, and industry for which you're interested in working in. Here's a brief overview of resume types. Depending on what your experience is in terms of the position that you're interested in, you may choose a different type of resume. What most people are used to are the reverse chronological resume, and it's the one I'll cover with you here today. There are examples of the functional, targeted, and combination resumes, as well as CVs in the ICC information I've provided for you. So please take a good chunk of time to review these and see what works for you. So again, the reverse chronological format has a heading, and the standard headings are summary of qualifications, education, experience. Again, I prefer to have, especially in your case, education listed first because it's what you have to offer, summary of qualification next, where you highlight what you bring to this particular position, and experience with achievement statements. Again, this is the standard format, and it's most preferred by employers because they understand this format. It is date-oriented, it provides a history of education and experience, and it lists the most recent experience first. This type of resume highlights a consistent work record. This type of resume illustrates experiences within specific job titles. Again, notice objective is missing. So the heading is placed at the top of the page and aligned at the center. Your name appears on the first line and should be in bold and in slightly bigger font, probably no more than 14. The heading includes your contact information, and this includes your address. Some students prefer to use a permanent and current address, and this is fine. Phone number where you will be reached, and email. Again, make sure that you use an email that's professional and appropriate. Also, you are including a phone number. Make sure it's a phone number you will answer. And make sure that this phone number has a message that is professional and appropriate. I can't tell you how often we've been interested in a candidate, and when I call, I'm really turned off by the message that the candidate has provided on their phone. So again, remember that the resume, as well as the cover letter, but also your phone message and your email address, give us information about you and how professional or not you may be. The summary of qualifications is optional, but I find it to be very helpful. Use a qualification summary only if it puts emphasis or links your background that is most relevant to the job requirements. You could use 3 to maybe 6 bullet points of special accomplishments, key work skills, outstanding traits, and relevant work history. Again, with the summary of qualifications, you'll notice it's just a statement there, but I absolutely prefer that you make it an accomplishment statement, even under the summary of qualifications. Accomplishment statements are covered in depth in our previous lecture. Education is, again, something you should begin with. Right now, it's your best offering as a student or recent grad. This will change after you've had some experience in the field of interest. But for now, again, a great thing to highlight, the fact that you are a student or recent graduate of a Research One institution. List your highest level of education achieved first. Highlight your degrees earned or to be earned. List your major, minor, concentration, or emphasis. I didn't realize how important it was to list a minor until I once asked an old director of mine, "What made you hire me?" And it wasn't my communications degree. It was my art studio minor. And when I asked why, she said, "Well, I figured with an art studio minor, you would come up with some creative ideas on how to help our organization." So again, make sure you include all of that information. List your GPA only if it's decent or considered good in your field. So for example, in communications, a 3.0 is considered okay, but maybe in engineering or biology, that is a great GPA. For the most part, we say, list your GPA if it's a 3.0 or higher. It's okay to list a major GPA only or an overall GPA if one is higher than the other. Show them what's impressive about you. You can list relevant coursework, although I do prefer that you leave this out unless you have space in your resume and can keep it to one page. I prefer that you list relevant coursework if necessary to showcase you in your cover letter. But you should list any special licenses, credentials, certificates, exams, or training if you think they feel they meet the education heading criteria. Under experience, make sure that you list the company name or organization name, the location of that particular job that you were in, so the organization you were in, job title, dates of employment, and duties performed. Make this section very easy to read, either using spacing and or bullets. Each sentence starts with an action verb. Again, do not use personal pronouns. This particular section example that I've given you here is not my favorite, but it gets you started. So again, go back to the achievement statements in the previous lecture to help really get your experience achievement statements down pat. Make sure you use correct verb tenses and that they are consistent. If you're currently in the job, then you want to make sure you use the appropriate verb tense. Use present tense for current positions and past tense for previous positions. Avoid using terms that only an insider would understand. That includes jargon and abbreviations. And again, remember that even though you're submitting this resume to an industry that you would assume understands the jargon and abbreviations, again, the resume may go through a software resume program or through an assistant who really doesn't understand what the terminology means. You can add additional sections to your resume, such as honors, activities, and relevant skills we covered already. Generally, do not include references on your resume. It is also not necessary to type references available upon request. Of course, you're going to provide references if they're requested. Employers will contact you for references if they want them or if they're necessary for the application process. Choose professional references rather than personal references when possible. Practice good etiquette also when providing references and make sure that you've contacted your references for permission before giving out their contact information. I also highly recommend that you feel out a potential reference for whether or not they're going to provide you with a decent reference. I've been in the position where a student asked me to provide a reference, but I have never met this student. With an online course, it makes it difficult. And all I can really say about the student is, great, they received a wonderful grade in a class, but I didn't get to know them because they never came to see me during office hours. We didn't research together. So make sure that you, again, get references from people who can say something more about you than, yes, this was my student and this was the grade that they received. Moving on to cover letters. People try to avoid these like the plague. I get it, they're daunting. But once you have a standard recipe down, it'll start to get easier to do. And yes, you should write a specific resume for every specific job. But again, remembering that once you have a decent recipe, you can make changes to the seasoning here and there. So what does the cover letter provide that's different from the resume? And why bother? Well, first, the cover letter introduces you as a candidate. It clarifies the position for which you're applying for. It enables you to highlight your strengths further. It asks an employer to take a specific action. And again, your cover letter, like your resume, should be job-centered, not self-centered. The cover letter should be 1 page maximum. Use regular business letter format. So again, 1 inch all around margins, professional, preferably 12-point font. And always make the attempt to address the letter to a specific person, not to whom it may concern. With this day and age, it's so much easier to be able to research the name of the contact person or hiring manager. Let me give you a personal example. When I first started applying for jobs, the internet didn't have as much information on people and organizations as it does now. So when I researched to try to figure out who was going to make this hiring decision, I found a contact name and I addressed my letter to that person. Come to find out, it was the person who delivered mail and answered the phones for the particular unit I was applying for. But once I was hired, that individual told me that she was so moved by the fact that I had taken the time to figure out anyone in the office that she made sure that the director who was hiring received my application information. So do the work. It's okay if you send it to the wrong person, but it shows that you care enough to try to at least research a contact person within the organization. When in a pinch, you may use to the hiring manager or to the selection committee, etc. It goes without saying, proofread and check your letter for proper grammar, spelling, etc. Let's move into the recipe. First paragraph. The first paragraph should include information on why you are writing. Specifically mention the position you're applying for and how you will follow up. So here's an example. I would like to express my interest in the pharmacy intern position with Kaiser Permanente advertised, with the UC Davis Career and Internship Center. I'm confident that my education and experience would be a valuable addition to the pharmacy team. Notice several things there. I'm saying I'm interested in this very specific job position with this very specific organization. You can include a requisition or job number in parentheses right after that first sentence, or within that first sentence, I should say. And I also have let the hiring person know where I learned of this position. Now, if you've been referred by someone, it's great to note that right at the very beginning. And then I've thrown in that I'm confident that with my education, again highlighting my education and experience, that I would be a valuable asset or addition to the team. So I'm standing out as a candidate, but also noting that I'm willing to be a part of this group. The middle paragraph is describing what you have to offer the employer. Remember that you're interpreting your resume in the cover letter, not simply repeating it. What I see often is people will take chunks of the resume, copy and paste into a cover letter. No, here's your opportunity to provide your hiring manager, potential hiring manager, information that highlights further who you are in the way that you've written the information that's a little less standardized than a resume. So mention specifically here how your qualifications match the job you are applying for. Clearly, you would have to have done some research to be able to do this. So again, reminding you to do the research in advance. So the example I've given you notes, evidence of my skills and qualification can be seen in my responsibilities as a pharmacy assistant of Planned Parenthood Sacramento, where I provided customer service and assisted the pharmacist. My educational background in biochemistry has been excellent preparation for a career with Kaiser Permanente. So again, highlighting your specific skills and how they match to the job you're applying for. I've also taken it a little bit further and have said, look, this is what I'm applying for, but I'm looking for a career with Kaiser Permanente, which is the one I'm using here, the example employer. The final paragraph thanks the employer for considering you for the position. It includes specific information on how you will follow up. So here I note, although the enclosed resume provides a good overview of my background and qualifications, I would welcome the opportunity to meet with you and discuss how I can become a positive addition to your team. Please contact me at 530-400-4111 or at jobjacob@gmail.com if I can provide additional information or answer any questions. Thank you for your time and consideration. Now here you can note a follow-up, which I did not in this particular paragraph, but some students like to note something to the effect of, I look forward to hearing from you. If I don't hear from you in a week or two, I will follow up. I choose not to include that. I hope that the process is one that moves fairly quickly, but very often people will note something to the effect of, I'll follow up shortly, and the reality is that the hiring manager hasn't even received resumes and cover letters in a 2-week period. So I personally leave that out. It's a personal touch that you can include, however. But if you say you're going to follow up, follow up. The complimentary close and signature, people get a little odd with it. I suggest that you keep it fairly professional. So something to the effect of respectfully yours, sincerely, best. Cheers is probably a little too comfortable at this point. You want to include a handwritten signature if you're going to mail the letter, and then a typed signature works just fine if you're going to submit it online. Again, I cannot emphasize enough the need to ensure that you read thoroughly the information provided for you on specifically targeting and formatting your own resume and cover letter. Until next time, thanks again.